Howdy guys, it's Luke at Luke's Affordable Paint Service, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about different water effects. Right guys, so what this video is about, it's about different resins, because the resin that I use, the polyester resin, I love it. It does smell to high heaven though, and I can understand why it puts a lot of people off using that, but it is very cheap. I mean, it's like a litre of it's like a tenner, so it's very cost effective to use. It dries very quickly with the fast catalyst. One reason why I like it. But there are other resins on the market that do the same sort of job and they're odor free. Alright, there's a couple of pros and cons to each resin, but I will discuss that in the video. And there's also some the resins that I'm using in this video that work on foam. Okay, so sit back, relax, take some notes guys, because there's quite a bit of information about each resin. Any questions I'll answer at the end. Alright, see you in a bit. Right guys, so a lot of you guys know with resins, I've always used this stuff, which is the clear cast resin. It's a polyester resin from CFS, okay? Now, I've been using this for like, what, probably a year and a half now, and I love the stuff. It's got some problems, it stinks like high hell, but it's cheap, and it works really well, okay? It does react with foam. There's a couple of precautions you've got to take when you're using this stuff. But as you can see, I put £8.97 per kilo. So if you bought a kilo of it, so a small tin like this, you'd be looking at £8.97. So that's like, you've got to think 500ml of Woodland Scenics or Vallejo waters, all the hobby waters that everybody uses, the acrylic resin types. 500ml is about 20 quid. So you can buy a kilo of this stuff, which is nearly 1000ml, for 9 quid. Okay, and that's with a fast catalyst as well, so you can get this to set in about 3 hours rather than a week. So this is why this stuff's brilliant, and this is why I use it. But like I said, it does smell. Okay, there's some smells. I wouldn't let your kids use this on their own. You mix it in a cup. I mix it 3 grams of catalyst to 100 grams, and then pour it and leave it, open a window and come back when it's ready. Okay, now talking to CFS, they were saying they do a couple of different clear cast resins. Okay, now I've asked them if there's any things they can send me so I can teach you people about different resins, and they've sent me these two. Now this at £23.20 a kilo is half price of the Woodland Scenic stuff. Okay, so you're getting double the amount for the same price. Now, these two do not smell. Very low odour, okay? This one is solvent free, so you can use this on foam, apparently. Well, we'll try that in this video, alright? Apparently, as it says there, you know, low shrinkage, high gloss, UV stable, so none of these yellow, okay? I don't know how thick you can pour these. It does say for casting, so obviously you should be able to pour them quite thick. Unlike this stuff, I mean, this is for encapsulations. I mean, you can pour this super thick and you'll never have a problem. But I don't know about these. I'm not going to try that in this video. It's going to be more on rivers and ponds, alright? But this stuff is solvent free, so all you people that are terrified of chemicals and everything else, this stuff is what to go for, and it's not a bad price, alright? And it's easier to use because it's a 50-50 mix, okay? So it's very simple, very user-friendly, because you've got to get 2 clear cups and you're away, alright? Which I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, this is a bit more expensive. I have had to play off camera, and I prefer this to that. There's less air bubbles in this, and it's a lot easier to work with, but I'll demonstrate this when we're playing with them. Now, before we do play with them, the characteristics of the polyester resin is very different to these two. Polyester resin has a natural ripple when it dries. You don't get that with these two. These are like glass, okay? So that's something else to take into account. Yeah, it stinks. Yeah, it reacts with foam, but you get a nice natural ripple. You don't with these two, Okay, so there's pros and cons to each one. A big pro to this is the price. A big con to this is it stinks. A good pro to this is it's not a bad price compared to the hobby shops. But the pros is it doesn't smell, and you've got all the benefits of this stuff apart from the ripples. And what's good about this one is it's a lot easier to work with air bubbles and things like that, but it is a bit dear. You are getting nearly double the amount for the same price, but yeah, they've all got the pros and cons, so I'll show you how to use them all. You take this from what you wish, and hopefully that you'll pick one that suits your needs. Alright guys, I'll catch you in a sec. Right, so this is how we mix each of the resins, okay? The first one's going to be the polyester resin. It's my favourite, as you all know. You have to have a pair of scales if you're using the polyester resin, just because it's mixing the catalyst right, okay? So I've got 50 grams down on the scales, okay? And because it's 50 grams, I'm using 1.5 of the catalyst. Now, this is a fast catalyst that I got them to send me instead of the normal. The fast acting catalyst, it makes this resin set in around 3 to 4 hours. Okay, so again, another reason why I like it, because it sets really quick. But as you can see, you can put your normal lime painter inks and things in there, as I've done before. Now onto the epoxy. As you can see, the difference with this already is it's really thick. Okay, it's the viscosity of this makes it a little bit more complicated to work with on pieces. Not so bad on these little crappy rivers that I've put together for the demonstration purpose, but say for example you've made a terrain piece and it's got big overhanging trees or bankings where you need to get under things. It makes it hard to get under there, especially on a board, because you can't lift the board up and move it so much, so you have to move it around with a spatula. It does need some help to self-level, so just bear that in mind if you are thinking of using this one. I do like it because, like I said, no odour, and what I also do like about it being quite high viscosity is you don't have to be as careful with the waterproofing of the barriers. You've still got to do it, of course, but it very rarely leaks, I've noticed with that one. Just give it a tap though once you've mixed it properly. Now onto the polyurethane resin. Again, mix this one 50-50, same as the epoxy, which makes it really easy to work with. Now, out of all the resins, this one is my favourite to work with because it's very similar to the polyester resin. It just doesn't stink. The only thing that puts me off this is the cost of it, but because it doesn't smell, and if I've got a lot to do, I'll probably be using this in the future. But it doesn't take ink at all, okay? I find that in this test. So this doesn't come out very well in this video, but trust me guys on this, if you're wanting a really good quality resin, the polyurethane resin is the better one if you don't want a smell. It's just obviously it doesn't take the ink very well, okay? So we have to get a tint from CFS for that. Now onto the pouring examples. Sorry about the polyester resin one, it's in the distance, but you've seen me pour this one 1,000 times, okay? It just pours like any resin would. It's very thin, it runs, it finds its own level. The only problem with that is if you've not waterproofed it properly, it will leak, okay? So make sure you've done it properly. I do get a bit of a leak out of this. Now as you can see with the epoxy, there's loads of bubbles. Now I'm holding this about 3 foot above the river, okay? So it's a very high pour, but what that does is it makes it, once it drops out onto the river, all the bubbles pop as they hit the base, okay? So as you can see how it doesn't self-level very well. It eventually does, it slowly creeps, but you've just got to keep an eye on it and make sure you do spread it evenly all over where you want it, and give it a hand sometimes to get where you want it to go. But it does self-level, it just takes quite a while, but if you have got a complicated area that needs some water pushing under it because you can't pour into it, just make sure you've got a spatula to push some under there and try and make it as level as you can. Okay. Now I just break off a bit of polystyrene to put a drop or two on the polystyrene to show you that it doesn't react with polystyrene, which is also good for people that don't seal the work properly. Okay. Now that I use sculptor mould, it doesn't matter what I put on things because it seals everything. But people still sometimes just paint things, and want to pour resins on, which you can't do with the polyester, but you can do with this. Okay, so the epoxy is great for pouring straight on top of polystyrene. Right, now with the polyurethane resin, give it a good mix, like both of them, mix it for a good 60 seconds or so, and look at how simple that pours. Okay, it pours just like the polyester resin, and it just goes on lovely. Okay, it's just a pity that in this test it did go wrong because I put some ink in it like an idiot. The polyester resin there is leaking, that's why I put the cup under it. So I need to seal that off camera, and all I do is get the hot glue gun and run it underneath to seal that. Okay, but as you can see, they all pour very well. I'll come back once they're dry to show you what they all look like when they're dry, and we'll chat again in a bit. Right, it's been about 20 minutes, and there's a couple of bubbles that are coming to the surface. So all I do, get a tongue depressor and just tap the surface of the resin. As you can see, it's slightly starting to turn as the resin. It's safe to touch and play with at this time. It just means you can pop the bubbles, and I do this on all 3 of the river pieces, just so you can see that it all comes out very easily with a spatula. Okay, if you are using resin, I wouldn't suggest using your fingers. If you are going to use your fingers, make sure you've got some gloves on, guys. Right, now on the epoxy, as you can see, it was quite a high pour. There's not many, with it being doing the high pour, it's got rid of most of the bubbles, okay? But as you can see, there's loads of very tiny surface bubbles, and all you've got to do is repeat the process again, okay? And just keep flicking that, moving that around. If there's any resin on the edge of the pond that doesn't look natural, just squash it down into the edge of the banking, and that'll also sort that out, okay? And with the polyurethane, very few bubbles at all. Just give it a tap and they'll come out. Now just check the foam. The foam on the polyester resin is slightly gone, whereas the foam on the epoxy is fine. Right, now on the polyester resin, as you can see, there is a slight natural ripple there. It's normally far better than that. I think it's more to do with the fact that it's a small area, or it's a small amount of resin that I've used. I don't understand why it's done very little on this one. But on the epoxy, it's completely glass clear. As you can see, there's a couple of bubbles, but I did go to bed early. And then you can see the monstrosity from the polyurethane resin, because it's completely reacted with the ink, and it's also pulled up some of the colour from the flocks beneath and all sorts, but that's only because it reacted. That's completely my fault for putting the ink in. I shouldn't have done that. Right guys, so to summarise, polyester resin is the first one. It smells, okay? It reacts with foam. Pros is it's cheapest. It has a natural ripple when it sets. And with the fast catalyst, it's going to dry in about 4 hours, thereabouts, okay? That's the polyester stuff, but it smells, okay? Now, epoxy, it's mid-range price, so you're getting a kilo worth of the stuff for about, I can't remember the price, it was 20 odd quid. So you're getting double the amount of the price, say a Woodland Scenics bottle, for roughly the same price, okay? Now, with this stuff, it's odour free. There's very low shrinkage. It does set like glass. I'd leave it overnight to set. Cons is it's very viscous. It's very thick. So when you pour it, you need to do a high pour to get the bubbles out. And then if you've got any complicated overhangs on rivers or ponds or any place that you're doing water effects, you're going to have to pick it up and get it to move around, because it's quite thick. It struggles to self-level, so you have to move it around quite a bit to get it to level itself out. Alright, now polyurethane resin, very bad example. This video doesn't sell it all, but out of all the resins, I prefer polyurethane resin, because it's odour free. It is more expensive. It's not much cheaper than the Woodland Scenic stuff. AK Interactive, Vallejo Stillwaters. It's roughly the same price. It's a little bit cheaper overall, but it dries in 3 or 4 hours, same as the polyurethane stuff. It's very easy to mix. It's very easy to work with. You need to use proper resin tints with it though, okay, which I'll have to get some and show you how to use them, but very simple to use. It is expensive, but it's a bloody good resin, okay? What I like about it is it doesn't smell. I could quite happily pour this at the other side of my room, leave it there, and I could carry on working. Obviously I'd have my window open still, but it's a good resin, okay? But it's the dearest. That's the only thing that puts me off. But very good resin. Only say cons with that is the fact that the price, and you can't put water-based inks in it, okay? Whereas the other two you can get away with it. So guys, if you've liked this video, if you found it helpful, please let me know below, guys. Sorry about the third one going wrong, but I didn't realise I couldn't put the inks in and it wouldn't work as well, but that's my fault. I apologise. But any questions, any info, check out below. And if you are wanting to buy some CFS resin, guys, you can get 10% off with my link below. So if you want it cheaper, check out below and it'll knock 10% off. And with some of the resins that you're possibly going to buy, it's almost paying for your postage, so it makes it a decent price. Alright guys, so thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again for the next video.